All right, everyone.
And so we're here to present an innovative and groundbreaking technology for in air travel that improves the quality of life for millions of wheelchair users around the world. And here's the presentation. Enjoy.
Okay. So where we're going to start is really trying to identify what the problem is. All right. So basically the challenges that we've been talking about in our group is that basically to try to make it easier and safer for individuals with physical disabilities to travel. Right? A lot of the times when you're planning your travels for months and months and months, right, you do all the planning and you go through basically flow of airport traffic. And for individuals with physical disabilities, oftentimes, there's increased boarding times and so forth. So what our target is basically try to come up with a device, right, which will allow us to basically expedite that process, and as well as make it safer, and also put the person in control, right, in the boarding process without the reliance of other individuals, especially airport employees and so forth. So we've come up with basically in terms of several different things that we're looking at and amalgamate them together, and we'll basically show you what the idea and solutions are.
I don't need the mic, I just need this. So assuming this is a plane and I have to go into the plane, first I would have to be put into a separate aisle chair that's very small. So we're going to assume my wheelchair is in that plane. So I would have to do a transfer in this stage before I get onto the plane. And then I would have to go backwards and then into about an 8-inch lift to get into the plane. And then in a very tight radius, be able to turn the chair. And the wheels don't turn, by the way. It's actually you have to lift the back of the chair to get through a small aisle. And literally, you're doing this all the way through, banging into people, not being able to squeeze in sometimes, really feeling like it's a nuisance to people. And then when you get to your seat, this thing doesn't go up all the time. So then you have to have somebody lift you higher than the handle to get onto the plane in order to actually get seated. So it's a very intense process and uncomfortable process, and hard not only on the employees, but also the individual person trying to get onto the plane. So that's their problem.
So in terms of the solution that we thought about is to come up with a universal chair, right, that really covers everything from getting the individual onto the plane and into the seats, and as well as basically getting them out of the plane as well. And to do that, I'll have Josh describe the actual device that we're thinking of trying to build as well.
So our solution was to basically build a better aisle chair. And in order to do that, we split up the components into a top and bottom sections. The bottom one has all the machinery so that when a person walks down or comes down the aisle and then reaches his or her seat, it'll automatically move the chair onto the existing ones onto the plane. That way, there's no transfer necessary and there's no external support that's actually needed anymore. And then on the back of this thing, also be a built-in Hoyer system so that they can be moved in and out of this seat basically far more easily than before.
In terms of our thought process?
Yeah. So in terms of our thought process, I need that. Yeah. I don't need the mic, just the mic. So in terms of our thought process, we actually we came up with this idea randomly just from listening to the tables, looking at the theme of mobility, and starting to come up with some challenges and barriers we thought people with physical disabilities are facing. And we kind of landed on travel, and we basically just started process mapping every component to getting into the chair safely and getting off the chair safely. Also, we just started looking at the dynamics of different mobility types of disabilities, and having voice activation, having an interface for someone to be able to access it through technology, as well as to take away the the burden of having to lift people, recognizing that WSIBs and other unions have policies around lifting, but really nobody has come up with a solution on how to stop the lifting. So that's how our process came through, is just looking at a problem and walking through the policy barriers, the employee barriers, and the individual barriers within our innovation.
So what we've learned.
So what we learned throughout this process was it was eye-opening to see what we take for granted in air travel and how inconvenient it is for people who rely on their wheelchairs to require several transfers, often lifted by people who are not experienced with transfers into their chair, into different chairs, how uncomfortable and narrow the chairs are through the aisles. And there's a clear lack of innovation in this space. Peter described the technology from the 1950s still used in the aisle chair, and the indignity of being transferred in the public space, often by several people at once, up and down steps and things like that.
What's next?
Oh, what? Go for it. Do you want to do that?
So in terms of what we're thinking of what's next, is really to understand the space a little bit more, right? In terms of understanding the requirements, understanding basically what are available out there already, and to improve on it. I mean, obviously, you know, in this day and age, technologies are often basically already being invented or being built on. As Stuart had already talked about, there are a lot of incubations that are in place, right? That often cost is a problem to basically get the product to market, right? So what our idea is really basically to amalgamate all of this, right, into one, and to bring this product to market as best as we can, and to basically, you know, make air travel and to make traveling in general basically more